Hello everyone, Crow here, and what we're looking at here is the Atari XEGS, or the Atari XE game system. This was requested by Snestastic. He wanted to get a little better look at the system, so that's what I'm doing now. Actually, he requested it over 2 weeks ago, I think, when I got the system originally, but it really didn't have that many games, and I have a handful of games now, so let's take a look at it now. A little bit of history on this and Atari computers in general is that after Atari released the 2600, they started releasing a line of 8-bit computers, starting with the Atari 400 and 800. Well, this expanded to the the XL line, and then the XE line, which this is a part of. Basically, also the Atari 5200 is also based on the Atari computer 8-bit line. So yeah, Atari started releasing the 8-bit computers. Then they released the Atari 5200. And then they actually designed and had ready for release the Atari 7800 in 1984. But they actually didn't release the Atari 7800 until 1986. And what's actually really weird about this is that this is based on that very old 8-bit line. It's just got, upgraded, memory and whatnot. I don't know. I really didn't find too many details on this. But it is, again, based on the Atari 8-bit line, much like the Atari 5200, except this was basically a direct counterpart to the Atari 65 XE computer. In fact, when this was released, there's also a there was also a bundle. I couldn't really find too much solid concrete evidence on this, but I've read that this was released alone separately, and it was also released later on with a bundle with a keyboard. Now, I don't have the keyboard, but yeah, you don't really need the keyboard unless you want to do, play some stuff that requires a keyboard. But yeah, there's kind of a dispute over whether or not this is actually a game system or not, because this is basically the same thing as the computer, the Atari 65 XE. Once you plug the keyboard in, you can plug in all the peripherals. All the cartridges are directly interchangeable. I think there might be a very few that are incompatible, but anyway, moving on. If anything I say is incorrect, just leave me a comment and I'll make an annotation on this. I really couldn't find that much information on this. But, just looking at this system, this was released sometime after, like a year after the Atari 7800. So it was released in '87. And, just looking at this thing doesn't look like a normal game system at all. It's kind of a hybrid between a game system, a computer, and late 80s styling, as you could tell by the beige and the pastel colors. Like look at these. They look like Skittles. It's hilarious. But yeah, just to oversight here, the cartridge port is all diagonal. There's really nothing in the front here. Along the side we have the cartridge ports here, which are again diagonal, and actually this makes it very hard for the controllers to put in, because you're blocked here. You have to hold in the controllers like very, very far back and push them in. Coming around to the back here, we have our plugs. This one is for the mono audio. This is for plugging into your it says monitor, but this is really your video jack. Then we have our high or low channels for this. This says television, but it's really your RF connection. This plug here is for plugging in peripherals. Like, there's a little picture of a printer there. You can plug in your printer, your cassette tape, your modem. I don't know what this is supposed to be, but I know you can plug in a disk drive for this. This is where your power plugs in. And then alongside this here, we have where your keyboard would plug in if I had one. And that actually plugs in, again, with the side. And looking at the bottom here, you can see that it's got that weird zigzagging pattern here and here. Everything's kind of on an angle. It's very, very bizarre. And I've actually taken this thing apart to clean it, and the circuit board is actually cut in the same pattern. It's just it's a very, very strange system all around. So, also, this thing came with what kind of controller? Well, it uses the regular 9-pin controller that the regular Atari used. and the Sega Genesis, so you can use Sega Genesis controller on it, the Sega Master System, and basically the controller it came with is a lot like this. I didn't get one that came with it, but it's exactly like this, except the base is colored to match the system. I think that the actual joystick part is still the rubbery black. I've never actually seen one, but I've seen pictures of it, and it's very much like this. So it does use your standard controller. You don't have to worry about a weird controller port like on the 5200. It also came with a light gun. Oops, I'm throwing it all over the place here. So yeah, it came with the light gun. As you can see, it matches. I had this before I bought the system, and I bought this so I could use it with my Atari 7800 because it does work with that. I don't have any light guns for this directly. This light gun really isn't as accurate as the NES Zapper. At least it isn't for me on the 7800. It seems to shoot wherever it wants to. But yeah, here's the the XEGS system. It does say XE system up here. I don't know if you can see that. And this is all raised, but it's just, yeah. And I don't have the keyboard to show you. But the games, it uses all the same cartridges that the regular Atari 8-bit line used. So, you know, I have like Star Raiders. These are the cartridges. They just go in here and plug in like that, showing off your very, very weird system. Just weird. It's I mean, and this came out what, like 1 or 2 years after the NES was released. It was hardly marketed at all. I don't even think they knew how to market this. Well, is it a computer? Is it a game system? Yeah, it's kind of a gray area. I mean, it is a computer, but again, it's kind of a game system. I mean, if you think about it, though, the current generation, like the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, I mean, you could plug keyboards into those. You could before they took away Linux support on the PS3, I mean, you could use that as a computer. So, you know, where's the line drawn? You know, what's the difference between a computer and a game system? You know, really. But then I also have kicks here, joust. You know, all these have these really weird, complicated mechanisms for making it show the pins. You basically have to, you know, put there's little poles that punch this and make this fly up, exposing the pins when you plug it in. Here's Space Invaders, and here's Hardball, which is it comes in a different case. It says Atari XE, so I'm not exactly sure. I don't think this is compatible with the XL line. I do remember playing Hardball on the Atari 1200 XL. I wonder if that was a different version. I know it wasn't on cartridge. I would know we were playing it on disk drive. But yeah, this more matches this design here. Looks better if you plug it in too. Yep. So yeah, here's your basic overlay of the system. Now, also, what's funny about this is that if you don't have a cartridge plugged in when you turn it on, let's pan up a little bit. Here's the screen. If we turn it on with no cartridge in there, it'll, you know what? I don't have it plugged in. So yeah, we have power, and then we have our sound and video. Nothing plugged into it. Turn it on, and it starts right up into Missile Command. That was basically the only difference between the Atari 65 XE and this Atari XEGS, is that without a game plugged in, it would start right up into Missile Command. But if we hit reset again, we have our self-test for memory, audio, visual, and keyboards, and which I can't do because there's no keyboard. If I plug in Hardball and turn that on, we push start. It uses all the buttons that are already on the console. Hit start, and then I could just use my joystick if I plug it in and select everything. So basically, all the buttons that are really needed are on the system itself. So with what time I have left, I'm just gonna do some capture footage of the game so you can see what they look like. They're identical to the Atari 5200 version games because it's basically based on the same line. And, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Dibs on the rocket pack. I got it. No, my turn. Oh, shoot.